Hi, my name is Peggy Stanton. After completing the leadership skills questionnaire, actually, I scored almost identically in all of the categories. Administrative skills, I had a 24, interpersonal skills, I had a 23, and conceptual skills, I had a 22, which isn't that surprising to me. I try to vary my approach um, depending on the situation, as to what skill I try to utilize when dealing with different things. So I wasn't too surprised with the results of that. And the organizational structure at my hospital, I would probably say is a matrix, formally probably a vertical structure. There is definitely a team organization within I would say is a pyramid, with the chief executive officer at the top of the pyramid, and then the chief nursing officer. And then it's divided up departmentally, the surgical services, behavioral health, med-surg, ICU, emergency department, that within the departments of the nursing in the hospital. And not only nursing, but also dietary and environmental services, that kind of thing. So on a departmental level, you have the manager. If it's a nursing unit, then under the manager you have the clinical unit leader, and then you have charge nurses, and then staff nurses. I actually work on the behavioral health unit, which is a little bit different at our hospital. It is considered a separate entity within our hospital. It's the only unit in our hospital that when we can't transfer from one unit to another within the hospital, we actually have to discharge our patient, even though they're in our hospital physically. Our unit is considered independent, so to speak. And so if our patient develops a medical issue that takes precedent over the behavioral health issue, and we need to transfer them to say a med-surg or ICU unit, we actually have to discharge them rather than transfer them. That's the only department in the hospital that functions in that manner. And by saying that, I was leading into the fact that our department, being a behavioral health department, actually is managed by or not managed, but has an outside entity called Horizons that gives advice on how to be compliant with current law and specifics that are related, uniquely to behavioral health. So we have a program director who's also a nurse, and she is over our behavioral health department. She's not employed by the hospital, but functions as a high-level manager within the hospital, but is employed by Horizons Health, which is an outside consulting company. So it's a little bit confusing. So in my specific department, it is the only one who has a program director. And so you have the staff nurse, and then you have the charge nurse, and then you have the clinical unit leader, which is my job, and then you have the nurse manager, and specific to our unit only, you have the program director. And then you go into the more like the CEO, CNO kind of roles. So that's where I fit in my hospital, in my department. And I feel that the structure, the vertical structure of our organization has its limitations as far as communication. I do see that as an issue personally. I do go to some of the upper level management meetings. I have not been going to as many in the last couple of months because prior to 2 months ago, I didn't have a nurse manager. That position had been open for about a year, so I was kind of filling in, or me and my program director were kind of sharing the responsibilities of the unit manager until that position was filled. And so I was going to a lot of upper level management meetings. And and so now I don't go to the upper level, I just go to the mid-level manager meetings and our unit meetings, unit manager meetings. So I do still see a problem with disseminating information from upper level to the floor nurses, for example. And I think my new nurse manager and myself are just learning. She's learning her role, her job responsibilities, and I'm learning, or having to learn, or struggling to learn how to pull back things that I had undertaken that were really not in my job description, that I did out of necessity, that are now her responsibility. I'm finding myself still overstepping my bounds in doing those things, and not consulting her as I should, you know, making decisions that I had made independently before, and forgetting that I need to defer to her and let her make those decisions. But I do see the that's just a departmental thing because of the nature of our unit and not having a nurse manager for a while. But I do definitely see an issue with the communication factor in the vertical structure, organization structure. And I see that a lot, specifically related to environmental or engineering issues. For example, it being a behavioral health unit, we have cameras on our unit. And I noticed a couple of days ago that there was some maintenance crews on our unit taking down our camera systems, and I had not been told that that was going to happen, that we were changing out our cameras, and it does bother me. Me being a clinical unit leader, I feel like I need to know what is going on in the unit at all times to keep my patients and my staff safe. And if there are outside construction companies coming onto our unit that are not familiar with behavioral health needs, and it being a locked unit as well, and a geriatric unit, and all of our patients being considered fall risk just by the nature of the medication that they're on, it does bother me that there are oftentimes things outside, outside departments that are coming up to my unit and doing things that upper management has approved for them to do, but the information was not trickled down to me, and to where I need to make sure my staff and my patients are safe, me being on the unit and being responsible for their safety at that time. So that is my biggest concern as far as that goes. And what skills described in Chapter 7, identified in a leadership skills questionnaire, would you need to secure resources for staff? Well, I do staffing right now. My manager and my program director actually have this complicated program staffing model where they use it's broken down to, let's say, what is it called? The nursing hours per patient day. It's a complex formula that they use to determine the staffing grid based on that. However, they break it down pretty easily for me. It depends on what our census is. That's how I staff. So it's a lot easier for me to staff than for them to figure out that model. And our unit is 45 beds. There's not, I do flex my staffing according to the census. However, it's a little bit easier for my unit to accommodate, to staff according to census, because although it is the largest unit in our hospital at 45 beds, it's almost always full. It's the only unit in our hospital that's almost full 365 days a year. So we're almost always at full staff. There are times when we do have to call someone off, or we are we're going through a phase right now where we're hiring a lot of staff. So I do find myself short-staffed while I'm trying to get new employees onboarded and oriented. So I sometimes will my chain of command is I will call the house supervisor and let them know what my needs are, and they will call central staffing and let central staffing know what my needs are. However, there's 8 hospitals in our corporation that pull from, there's 8 hospitals in our corporate system. However, in our general market share, there's I think 5 hospitals in our market share. So we pull from 5 hospitals have to share the central staffing staff, basically, which is our float pool. So sometimes I get the staff I need from central staffing, sometimes I don't. If I don't, I will sometimes call my staff and offer a date swap. If they prefer to have a different day off that is better staffed than the current shift that I'm trying to staff, then I'll offer them a date swap. And I try to, if a staff member in real time has an issue, say an unexpected doctor's appointment comes up, or a family issue that they want to attend but they don't want to be penalized as a call out or something like that, I try to accommodate those as best I can, knowing that if I am flexible with them, as long as it doesn't hurt the staffing grid, if I'm flexible with their needs, then they are much, much more willing to be flexible with my needs when I am short-staffed. I can call some of my nursing and CNA staff and say, we're really short this night, and they'll respond by saying, oh, you did me a favor when I needed to be off for my, whatever event, and I'm going to come in and help you out. So I do see that happen a lot, which I'm very thankful for. So that the staffing does fall on me. I'm usually able to get it worked out pretty well, and obviously I have to use planning, organization, and coordinating in my staffing issues. And the article that I am going to refer to tonight was written by Carrie Clark, and it's titled "Resistance to Change in the Nursing Profession: Creative Transdisciplinary Solutions." In this article, Clark challenges nurses to get back to what she considers the essence of nursing, which is caring and love and healing. And in this article, she's saying that we must put these back into not only patient care, but in management of our employees. And without putting these characteristics into our management practice, she believes that there will continue to be staffing issues in the hospitals within the United States. And those staffing issues will be a result of new graduates being dissatisfied with an inequality to what they thought their expectation of a nursing job would be, and the reality of the job is. So job dissatisfaction not only for the new graduate, but also for experienced nurses as well. And then, of course, nursing burnout and hardening of nurses, which would also lead to patient dissatisfaction as well. So based on this article and the leadership skills questionnaire, I would address issues immediately as they arise and learn the emotional undercurrents of my staff to promote job satisfaction when considering a higher level of management, if I choose to pursue a higher level of management within my career. Thank you very much.